Victor in Hamburg, Germany, which is very near where I was in Bremerhaven. Bremerhaven's a port city, as I remember, and I was working as a disc jockey for the Army in AFN in Bremerhaven. And Hamburg was the crazy big city we would go to, and some of the clubs out there had some great music. Okay. And then there was the thing called the Reeperbahn, if I remember right. It was the sleazy part of town we weren't supposed to go to. But you know me. All right. So Victor writes, lately I've been seeing a lot of buzz about audiophile fuses. Oh boy. You know the ones, silver, gold-plated, cryogenically treated, fancy end caps. Some folks swear they transform the sound of a system. Others say it's nonsense. So I've got to ask, what really makes an audio-grade fuse different from the standard ones that come with my gear? Are these just well-marketed tweaks, or is there actual engineering rationale behind the idea? Oh, gosh. Well, all right, let me tell you a little story. And this is interesting because our German distributor, Jürgen, came by, oh gosh, this was 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, when we were in the building across the street. And Jürgen said, I have something really exciting I got to show you. And we were in the older listening room with the Infinity IRS 5s. And I'm sitting there listening, and he plays something, and he says, nah, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. And I don't know, answered email on my phone or something. I just wasn't paying attention. And he turns it back on, and I'm like, whoa, what in the world? And he went back and forth. Never would tell me what he was doing. And I said, why aren't you going to tell me? And he said, because you won't believe it. And he's right. He was changing fuses. He had brought over a very expensive, at the time, it was like $45. Today, I mean, they are ridiculous. There's $350, $500, to the point of being absurd. Truly absurd. Hey, but this is what we do. So I got convinced a long time ago that it makes a difference, that fuses make a difference. And what that led to in our company is we went and investigated, all right, why? What's the deal? Well, so let's start with, what is a fuse? In the power entry system, where the 110 or the 240 volts comes into your equipment, you typically have a fuse, which if something happens to the equipment, it draws too much current, the fuse pops, and you don't get a fire. It's a safety measure, right? And there's two main types of fuses, a fast blow and a slow blow. A fast blow fuse has a little whisker of wire, a little curly whisker, and you've probably seen those before, and it's designed to go like that. A slow blow fuse has more of a flat piece of metal that takes longer to blow. Why? Well, when you first turn on a piece of equipment, you're drawing a lot of current as the power supply charges up its capacitors, right? So you don't want to just instantly blow it. So if you put a fast blow fuse in a preamp or a power amp, you're going to blow it the minute you flick the switch on, which you don't want to do. So it's a balancing act that has to take a certain amount of current over a certain period of time before it blows. And that's the kind that almost everyone that I've ever seen of these fancy fuses, they're all slow blow styles, right? And some of them are sand-filled because the idea is it's vibrating with the music, and I don't know. But one thing that was clear to me, how important, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, how important AC power is. Why? Again, Paul goes on, and I keep, sometimes I say things constantly to try and make a point home that not many people seem to get. But here it is once again. Everything you listen to in this equipment, whether it's a power amp or a preamp, any kind of equipment like that, you are listening to the power supply. The transistors, the circuitry, all that stuff inside is basically controlling how much of the power supply gets into the next piece of equipment. A preamplifier, here's a preamp. As you play music through this preamp, a signal comes in, that signal never goes out. That signal is lost inside of here. That signal that goes into here is what's turning the valve to the power supply on and off, up and down, and amplifying the power supply. You are listening to the power supply every single time, always. So, the quality of the power in the power supply makes a difference just by logical extension. And I know I'll get a lot of flack for this, so I'm not going to go on. Because actually, it's entertaining, the comments. But okay, so knowing that, that's why we recommend aftermarket power cables. That's why we recommend power plants, power regenerators. Get the power right in the first place. The power supply and all of our equipment, so important. Have to do it. Have to get it right because we're listening to the power supply. And then into all of that, this big expensive power cable, you're going to run all that through a little tiny fuse with a little piece of metal in there. And that somehow has to impact the sound quality like everything in the power supply does. So what we wound up doing is saying, all right, well, it's absurd to charge somebody $45 or $100 or $300, $500 for a frickin' fuse. So what we did is we figured out by various testing and trying which fuses sound best. And we spent probably a good month going through all kinds of different bus fuses, and we found fuses that really sounded significantly better than the stock off-the-shelf stuff that we never paid any attention to before that in the past. So every piece of PS audio gear that you buy comes with a hand-picked, hand-selected fuse that sounds appropriately good for what it is. Now, that said, plenty of people take it out and put their $500 fuse in, and we're fine with it. We actually make a point of having the fuses accessible on the back of our units so people can do it, like tube rolling. Do we do it? No. But I understand it. It does make a difference, and you are more than welcome to do it. All right? I hope that's a good enough answer. Thanks for the question. Bye.